All right, I'm going to get started now. So what I just mentioned is that today we're going to start developing the final. So what we're going to do is actually build basically the shell of a massing that has a curtain wall component built into it. But what I want to emphasize is what it actually takes to get something architectural off of massing. So you'll notice that in Grasshopper it gets a little bit convoluted because there's no just loft surfaces or thicken or anything like that. And that's a product of us working with NURBS, curves, or something like that. That's what I read in the forums anyway. For instance, like in other software packages like 3D Max or even in Dynamo for Revit, if you're working in the massing environment, you can take a surface and just thicken it, right? Much like you would have done back in Form Z, if any of you use that, like in older classes. You can't really do that here, so we have to reconstruct the faces and then solidify them. So what we're essentially doing right now is this. And this is really just it's a mass that I can, simply move around. All I have to do is grab the points and it'll readjust. So I can move the front face. I can, kind of twist the exterior walls around to create the form that I want, obviously, for my project. And then it's really as simple as baking everything out and moving it to the side in order to get what you would call rapid prototypes, right? So you've heard the term rapid prototyping. Well, that usually exists in manufacturing and industrial design, but it also exists in architecture digitally, something like this, where you're just kind of doing full masses. And with Grasshopper, right now we don't have a facade on it, but you can see how easy it would be to just, pull, as long as everything is really super smart, you can just pull the corners of your mass and the facade will adjust with it. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and I'm going to get us to this point before I release you to do your final, which would be the curtain wall component, and then other things that I'll explain toward the end of the class. All right, so I'm hoping we're going to do this in 5 or 6 videos, hopefully relatively quickly. None of it is really new, except for a couple of abstract ideas. So with that, are you guys ready to get started right away?
Yes.
All right, so in your fresh, actually let me just move that. In your fresh Grasshopper file and in Rhino, what we're going to start with is actually just the points, right? So we're going to construct the points that are going to create this geometry. And you want to do it in something that's kind of believable as a building size. So if I measure my distance somewhere in space here from there to there, it's about 53 feet, or I guess my grid is set up to be 50 feet long. So if I wanted it to be just slightly larger than that, then I'll get something that could be like a 2 or 3 story building like you saw. So I'm going to do 5 points, and it doesn't really matter where they go, but if you want to have something that's similar to my massing, then I would try to configure them similarly to what I have. So we've got I think I just kind of started off with almost like a trapezoidal sort of volume like that, with a sort of a curvature front point like that. And that's really it so far. And then the other part that I generated right up front was to grab all 4 of these trapezoidal points and to just copy them up about 50 feet. So I can kind of yank them up here like that. So now in perspective, what you're going to have are 5 points in the base plane. Those are these. And 4 points above. That would be these. And then the only thing I'm going to do here real quick in Grasshopper before I release you guys to do this, and then we'll move on to a little bit more, is to reference them in. Bottom points and top points. So I'm going to go under params here. And I can right click them and I can set multiple points, and I can just pick all these bottom ones. and then I'll do another one, and I'll set multiple points and go to the top one. And pay attention to the order that it goes in here. It should be in the order in which they were created. But what you need is for it to actually go around the profile of this here. So these are my top points.
Is that good?
Yes.
Did you just copy some up?
Yep, I just copied them.
Okay. Does it matter what the distance is?
About 50 feet. You want to get roughly the same volumetric proportions that I have here. Something like that. And then, I'll let us get to that. All right. So I'm going to pause real quick and come around and make sure you're all to this point, and then we'll move on with actually generating something off of this. So guys, I just want to clarify something real fast. I'm going to sort of jump ahead a few steps with an abstract and talk to you about the order of selection of your points. So I created mine in a radial fashion, which meant that when I created all of my top points here, and I said set multiple points, and I selected everything on the top, what it did was it created the profile curve. That's because I created my first point here, second point there, third point here, fourth point here. That would be here, 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 and here. So what I might have done otherwise, and what some of you have started to do, is to create them in a different way. So if I go from this point to that point to this point to that point, and then I try to reference those in, see how it crosses? So I'm going to show you here in just a second that I am using polylines to generate this, which means you need them to read in the proper order if you're going to automatically generate a polyline. So you can have that work for you, even though they're a little bit off. You can say set multiple points, and you can say 1, 2, 3, and 4, and still get the same result without having to redraw them. But it's up to you how you get it. What you do need, though, is these top points. So what you do need is these to show like that. Okay? So I'm going to stop this video here, and then we'll move into actually creating more of the exterior wall surface in just a sec.